What's the fastest way you've seen a room full of happy people turn angry? During bar trivia the question was what was the biggest fish. In Finding Nemo the answer was blue whale. Whales aren't fish. People started yelling at the guy that whales are mammals. They said it was in the water, so it counted as a fish. I asked if the dentist was a fish, since he was in the water. That Applebee's just barely avoided a riot that night. One day at work we had an hour meeting followed by a planned pizza party as a reward for meeting some safety goal. They'd been telling us all week not to worry about food because they were getting pizza. Well, after the meeting we're sitting around waiting for the pizza to get there when our boss comes in and tells us there was a failure of communication and no one actually ordered the pizza. If you want to see 50 factory workers go from excited to murder ready in less than a second, that's what you tell them. At my work we host weddings. A few years ago the groom and one of our waitresses were caught having sex on the 9th green by the maid of honor. The 180-degree turn of drunk happy people to incredibly angry drunk people was insane. The families were screaming at each other, the bride was crying, the mother of the bride was crying, the dad was being held back cause he was gonna kill the groom. Understandable. We ended up calling the police. They came and escorted the groom's family out the door. Some of the smart groom's family took off right away when they heard. It all happened within an hour. We call the incident night pudding. My extended family had a day at the lake. All day was nothing but happiness until we started cleaning up. Half of the family were on the lake and decided to play a prank on the rest of us who were getting ready to go. They sent a voicemail that they were sinking and didn't have life jackets. There were kids on the boat who couldn't swim. My grandpa believed it, and when none of the nearby boat owners would let him borrow one to save his family, he stole a boat and went out to look for them. He of course found them safe and sound, and there was a huge fist fight when everyone got back. Some of them haven't spoken to each other since, and it's been years. At a friend's funeral who had committed suicide, everyone was somber and respectful as the service went on and the clergy talked about heaven and whatnot. The last speaker comes up and says well she may not be allowed in heaven because of the suicide and how that's a terrible sin, yada yada yada. A huge portion of the family starts sobbing uncontrollably and some outright walk out. Those that stayed were super angry and began to threaten the speaker. He had to be escorted from the funeral home by security. Pub quiz. Everyone was a bit boozed up. Announcer, who was universally hated and considered a massive bellend by everyone, made the controversial call to disallow a debatably correct answer. The answer given by everyone was Jessica Ennis, the Olympic athlete from England. But she had gotten married 2 weeks before the quiz, and so her official name was Jessica Ennis Hill, which was the only accepted answer. 2 teams actually walked out after shouting abuse at the guy running the quiz, and everyone else would. In the spring of 1999 I went to a film festival that debuted a documentary about the gothic subculture called Six, Death, and Eyeliner. It was made by one of the guys who made Trekkies, and was very similar to that movie. It poked fun at the lunatic fringe element of the subculture, but overall it was pretty respectful and everyone in attendance, mostly a toned down group of goths, enjoyed it. At the end of the film the producer did a Q&A, and during it mentioned that he was having a difficult time trying to sell it to the right people. The Columbine massacre had happened just a few weeks earlier, and for a while the media was trying to portray the shooters as goths. A lot of companies were interested in buying it, and the producer was very concerned about not letting it get into the hands of someone who would try to portray goths negatively. The final question of the Q&A was from a guy who went off on a tirade defending the shooters of Columbine and explaining how he understood how they felt and why they did what they did. The entire room went from laughing and feeling very good to overwhelmingly pissed off at this guy and booing at him. Completely killed the mood of the evening. Halfway through a wedding reception. Lots of booze. Band leader asks crowd to find out which man at their table has the nearest birthday. Okay, accomplished. Then, the band leader says, each guy give the flower centerpiece to the prettiest girl at the table. 11 other guys get it right and give it to their girl. The guy at our table, fairly inebriated, doesn't give it to his wife. He gives it to the prettiest girl at the table. Holy crap. The air got sucked out of the room. The wife is steaming. She looks ready to grab the vase and smash him in the face with it. The other, less pretty girls are fuming. The girl with the flowers has no idea what to do, but her boyfriend wants to kick the husband's ass. The rest of us are either horror-stricken or nervously laughing. We know we are all gonna hear it. The tables nearby have seen/heard most of it, and the whispering spreads. The band starts to play, and the wife takes the opportunity to get louder before storming out. The party was over. He was just doing what he was told. Poor bastard. High school, 2001. Everyone was laughing and making jokes about how stupid someone would have to be to accidentally fly a plane into a building. Teacher turned on the TV at the exact moment the second plane flew into the tower on ABC News. Not sure if that counts as being ugly and sour, but definitely changed the mood in the room from joking to "we are going to hell." We were at a birthday party for one of our friends. He was a biker, and he had a bunch of his biker friends over. One of my husband's other friends, not a biker, was drunk and kept touching my butt. I told him not to touch me, or I would drop him. His last time, I walked by, and he slapped my butt really hard. I swung around and punched them in the face. Because it was a narrow walkway, his head hit the wall. I broke his nose, and it cracked his 2 front teeth. Found out later the next day, he had shitty teeth, so it didn't take much to break them. The party went dead. It got really quiet. I yelled at him and told him not to freaking touch me ever again. Of course my husband was upstairs taking a dump and missed the whole thing. He came downstairs and I told him we are leaving. All the bikers went over to this guy and started yelling at him about disrespecting other people's women and stuff about ruining a good time. I'm not sure what happened after that, but we left. No one ever hung out with that guy again. His own brother was part of our group of friends and he never invited him anymore. My brother's birthday party. He had recently gotten engaged. My aunt in the loos commented to another relative that it was shame he hadn't found a nice policewoman. Brother is a policeman. His now wife's dad had just finished a long prison sentence to being a gangster and blamed her for his not being promoted in the distant future. Her friends overheard and it all kicked off. Both families waded in. It took a dozen off-duty policemen to separate everyone. They got married in Las Vegas and didn't invite anyone. Yesterday evening, at a house party, BBQ, beer, swimming, everyone is having a real good time. I go to get in the pool and these 2 girls from the Middle East start making fun of me because I have some really bad scar tissue around my left leg, asking me if I got freaked up by a dog or something. Essentially the front of my shin and the side and back of my ankle is all scar tissue, and there are a couple of pretty nasty scars on my thigh in the front and on the outside. I had to explain that while I was in the sandbox working private security for a humanitarian organization providing aid to children, that one of the guys we were with stepped on an IED and blew his leg off. I went in to get him and another went off, shrapnel tearing chunks out of my lower leg, and then 3 entry/2 exit wounds getting shot trying to drag him to cover. Got him out. He was screaming the entire time. I'm covered in blood and crap holding this guy, looking at the leg in the dirt and wondering if it's his or mine. Everyone just stared for a solid minute or 3. One of the guys says, "That's some hero crap right there." That's when I told them he died. Right there. While I was still half-ass holding half-ass shielding him. Crap got dark real quick. Was at a wedding once, and the groom was doing his speech. Sounded like it was coming to an end. Throughout the whole thing a massive screen was showing happy pictures of the couple. People were smiling and laughing at the jokes. Then he gets to the end and says, "Most of all thanks to my best man and my new beautiful wife for teaching me a life lesson." He looks over to his best man and winks then to his wife with a cringy smile. Everyone is sitting on the edge of their seats waiting to hear what will come next. "Jen, you are a real beauty and the kindest person I know, blah blah blah." He turns to his best man. "Congratulations Dan on scoring so big. Sedan here has been banging my wife for the past 6 months." He skips to the next slide to show a video of Jen and Dan having sex, literally drops his microphone and leaves. I hadn't a clue what to think, do or say. It was insane. He had another mate who came to pick him up and just left with his beer in hand. I wouldn't say the room was full of happy people, but I saw a similar situation. My brother-in-law had very suddenly passed away, and so we had to help arrange everything. During the funeral, everyone was, of course, weeping and mourning the loss of him. very quietly and respectful. There was also others helping console those who were taking it very hard. I kept having to leave because I had a 4-month-old who would giggle and coo, and I felt bad for those who were mourning. Anyways, as I was walking back to the pew, I saw my husband turn to the guy behind him and ask the guy to please stop swearing. The guy started to puff his chest and asked if my husband wanted to fight him. This guy was in no way related to the family and had never met the person who passed. Anyways, my sister-in-law, the widow, turned around and yelled, "You need to get the freak out," to the guy. The guy was a boyfriend to one of the deceased's sisters. So that whole side of the family stood up and started yelling at the widow. The widow stood up and tried to charge at the sister. My husband managed to stop her. Anyways, half of the room left while the other stood/sat awkwardly as the police escorted the deceased's family members out. What a crazy funeral. Both sides of the family were not too fond of each other, but it was very startling and sudden. I was at my younger cousin's birthday party and his stepmother was pregnant. Everyone talked about new baby and the family, and then my grandmother says how in 8 to 10 years we will be talking about how I will have a baby. I told them that I don't want children, and in that moment my grandmother gets this shocked look on her face and everybody looks at me like I'm the worst person ever. And the second time was connected with the first story. About 8 months after I went with my family to visit my then 5-month-old cousin, my aunt told me that I will change my mind about children and proceeds to give me my cousin to hold her. Again I said that I don't want children because I want to have fun while I'm young and not take care of somebody. Of course everyone looked shocked and my baby cousin starts crying. After that they still tried to convince me that I should have children when I'm young, and they would always show me pictures and videos of babies, but that stopped. In the elevator of Grant South at Northern Illinois University. This was a 12-story college dormitory with incredibly slow elevators. Folks who lived on the top floor would sometimes have to wait 20 to 30 minutes to get all the way to the lobby for dinner. The unspoken rule was, if you lived below the 5th floor, just take the damn stairs. So after the 5th floor stop, with the elevator car jammed like a Tokyo subway at rush hour, the mood would pick up noticeably. Next stop, lobby. But nobody told that unspoken rule to the deaf students who all lived on the 3rd floor. They'd get on, and everybody would silently hate on them so hard. One time, I heard a guy whisper in the back of the car, "I guess the stairs must be broken." I turned around and said in normal voice, "Why are you whispering? They're deaf." And then somehow, I could feel all the hate transferring onto me. People are weird. Years ago in a college town there was a small block of duplexes all rented by students. It got pretty wild on the weekends, and usually the parties spilled out of the duplexes and into the parking lot/lawn, and everyone mixed and mingled. One unit had a dog that got out and unfortunately got hit by a speeding car. Police arrived. The dog was not killed instantly, and an officer talked to the owner and agreed to put the dog out of its misery. We were all asked to stuff back into our respective duplexes so there would not be throngs of people milling about as the police took care of the dog. Sad as it was, within 10 minutes the now absolutely packed living room was back to partying, drinking, laughing, and other duplex units were doing the same. Maybe we were hoping, if we were loud enough, we wouldn't hear the shot. Then all of a sudden some guy who arrived late and had no idea what was happening knocked on the door real loud. Everyone just assumed it was the police again, and it got very quiet. Right as he flung the door wide open with a stupid "what's up," we hear a loud bang of a pistol. The entire living room of people dove into chaos. Some were yelling at this guy and throwing things. Others were sobbing and wailing hysterically. In one moment it went from a party to a psychological experiment, as far too many drunk people in a tight space had to contemplate and process what had just happened. Was at a bar with my GF and a bunch of her work friends. Place was packed and everyone is in a pretty good mood. Dude at the table next to our was playing with some girl's keys and pushed what he thought was the on button to a small flashlight. In reality, it was a small can of mace that he ended up spraying into the air. Cleared out the whole bar with everyone coughing and crying. Way after Vanilla Ice's popularity, he played some shows at small bar type venues. My friends and I decided to go, as a joke. The atmosphere in the place was really fun, and everybody was having an unusually awesome time. Vanilla Ice didn't go on when announced, and then the DJ took to the mic to announce that he had no showed. The place instantly went into riot mode, yelling, cursing, pushing, and shoving, and then people started throwing beer bottles and breaking furniture. All the mirrors in the place got broken, and the DJ had to run out through the back door. Good times to a full-on riot in under a minute. Over Vanilla Ice. I still don't understand. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.